Mirasee.
I guess it sounds like what it comes down to is you're looking at it from a learner-centered and an outcome-based perspective, which is something we often talk about in learning design, but it seems to be a perspective that is not very intuitive to a lot of course creators.
Hello and welcome to Course Lab, the show that teaches creators like you how to make better online courses. I'm Ari Eni, the Director of Growth at Mirasee, and I'm here with my co-host, Abe Crystal, the co-founder of Rizuku.
Hey there, Ari.
In each episode of Course Lab, we showcase a course and creator who is doing something really interesting, either with the architecture of their course, or the business model behind it, or both. Today, we welcome Quinn Simpson to the show. She is a co-founder of Graydin, an organization dedicated to transforming support for young people in schools and homes worldwide. Since 2011, Graydin has pioneered coaching in education, partnering with over 300 schools and universities globally. With 18 years of experience in coaching, teacher training, and content creation, Quinn is a certified coactive NLP coach practitioner. She also co-founded Akosia, a charity that ran for a decade, using coaching to empower underprivileged children and women through filmmaking projects. Welcome, Quinn.
Thank you.
I gotta say, Akosia sounds awesome. I'd love to hear more about that later as well. But first thing first, could you give us the 30,000 foot view of yourself, your journey, and how you came to the world of online courses?
I think it does go back to when I was 7, being on the playground and really recognizing that I am not like others. And I don't play well with others. I don't learn like others. And I am challenging to everyone around me. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there being like, I'm just me. Can you just love me? And so I think that quite literally from that age in high school, into university, going forward, I kept thinking about how do we learn well? What does development look like? How can I change my habits, my behaviors, and be a better version of myself? I read self help books. I learned through taking courses at university. I was taking sociology and thinking about my friends and what society looked like. When I found coaching as a modality to help people, I was like, oh, this is the thing I was looking for all these years. One of the founding fathers of the coaching industry, Sir John Whitmore, said to me, you can't change the world one person at a time. You have to change institutions. That's what led me to working with schools and working in the world of education. And then that's what led me from there to then how do we do this and scale this? How do we teach in a way that, even though coaching to me is a very in-person experience, how do we get more teachers involved in a way that's still meaningful, that still really upholds the same values and makes learning beautiful and a wonderful, cozy experience? So that's kind of how I got to online learning. I think the pandemic really like shoehorned us all toward that in a beautiful and less than enjoyable way in some ways. But now we're here and I love it and I just can't wait for more and more.
That's awesome. So could you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do, what the format is? How do you work with people in schools?
So I think the first thing to know is that we can work with a school in two ways. We work with a teacher or we work with a school. If it's a school, it's often like a legacy leaving leader, someone who's like, I want to make a mark. I want to make this school different. I want to change the culture of this organization. And they see this like bigger picture. And that's someone that brings us in and we run courses in that school, sometimes in person, sometimes live online, and sometimes self-paced. And then the other side is a skill building teacher, like a teacher who wants to learn skills, wants to get better, wants to grow as a human. And so either of those people come to us and they're like, we've heard about Graydin. We want to learn coaching skills. We want to be better at our craft, at educating. We want to be better at supporting our students one to one, but also in small groups. We want to be better at conversations with parents. And when I say better, I mean more supportive, more connecting, more empowering conversations that, of course, lead to more meaningful relationships. And that leads to a better culture within the org or within the teacher's classroom. So, yeah, that's the kind of person that's coming to us. And then our courses are immersive, intimate, loving, digestible, experiential learning experiences that I literally cry every time. And people are so grateful for not just learning something professional, but learning something that feels deeply personal for them as a human. And then I love our live online classes because it merges self-paced and being in a learning kind of in-person environment. So you have like discussions and practice sessions, but you also have the self-paced learning in between that sets us up for success. When we're online, we're not spending the whole time watching videos or talking at each other. Instead, it's about intimate connections and relationships and working together and practicing. And then we have our self paced version, which is completely self paced and it involves more demonstrations and videos and time for you to do the work outside of a classroom setting.
Got it. And so it sounds like currently you have live in person, you have live online, and you have self-paced, entirely self-paced, or also the self-paced have some live components?
Entirely self paced.
Entirely self-paced. Awesome. And so was the live in person, was that the main thing that you were doing before the pandemic? Was there also an online class
No,
before then? There was not.
the only thing we had, because I was really passionate, I love tech and I love using technology well. So I had built this learning portal where you could download resources after the course. So, the handbooks and the worksheets and everything, they got access to an online portal that had learning, but there was no flow of learning. A good self paced course is not a library of resources. It's got a real intentional feeling of flow to it and scaffolding someone's learning and thinking through, okay, they just had a video, now they're going to read. Oh, they just did a lot of reading. Now they need an audio file. Like, how do you curate an experience for them that they can immerse themselves in and feel really excited about it, but then also be able to step away from easily. So that's what I love about the self paced side of things. We do have libraries as well, which are reminiscent of our old learning portal, which is just like, here's a bunch of stuff, figure out what you need, which is nice. But if you're not as educated in what the work is, I don't know how you feel about going to a library, but I feel a little bit of overwhelm. I'm like, there's so many books. So a course is basically like a library that's curated for a specific experience.
And so when you shifted from these live in person to the live online, did you just shift it entirely kind of 100% the same? I'm sure, like, possibly at first it was similar, but how do you feel that's changed? And what have you learned in that process of taking something that you've done in person and shifting it to an online format?
So I think because of the way my brain works and the way that my co-founder's brain, her name's Mackenzie, when Mackenzie and I do something, we are always thinking, how can I do this better than others? I mean, that's kind of like part of the goal, but better in terms of our values. How do we really meet the needs of our community and really serve them in a powerful way? And so it was March, and our next course that we had to run was April, which was in person. So we are like, okay, let's push it to May. Let's spend the entire month of April figuring out how to do this online, and we just did. We found Thinkific. We went through a lot of the platforms at the time that we could find access to. We decided that was the best for educators and for the learners that we had. Then we were like, but it looks like crap, or at least that's what we thought. So that we found someone to HTML it and make it look prettier. And then from there, we were like, okay, how do we create the same feeling of learning, but through images and graphics and through audio files and videos? And so then we made all these videos. To this day, 4 years later, we just redid our videos, but all of our videos that I made at my cottage with, like, crappy lighting are still on our platform because they're actually pretty good. And the audio files, I mean, you can do audio pretty well these days, so as long as you're pretty good with a mic, those have worked really well for us. And we already had tons of written content. We just took our handbooks and we rewrote and reformatted it into Thinkific to create a flow of learning. But no, we never just did our courses online. I was actually strongly against that. I thought that was the really narrow minded, oh, the pandemic's going to end perspective. And we had no idea how long it was going to go on. I wasn't going to sacrifice our learners' experience for that kind of perspective. So we were like, no, we're going to do a 16-hour course across 4 sessions. We're going to have an hour of learning in between, and each session will feel like a completely different magical learning experience every single time.
That's awesome. And I really appreciate that. I mean, you gave yourself that month, but you gave yourself only a month as well and didn't continue pushing it off. Very cool. So another question that I have, a slightly different topic, is around the people who you work with. So you said that you have these two groups, the teachers themselves. So these are people who want to build their skills. And so they come to you. These are people who pay individually. And then you have the legacy leaving leader, someone who wants to come in and have you teach in the school so that everyone kind of learns and gains and the community becomes stronger and the culture becomes stronger. The marketing to these two groups can be very different. Do you market to both, or are you marketing to one group and the other group just finds you, or how does that work?
Really good question. I wish I had a really good answer for it because I think we do attempt to market to these two groups. I don't think we are hugely successful at sharing our story eloquently to each of them. If you go to our website literally today, it says support your students who supports you, or you support young people who supports you. Some statement like that. I think we were just putting a document together that says you support young people who supports you for our live online classes that we deliver. So parents and educators can come to them. So we wrote young people instead of children or students for that reason. But ultimately, it is difficult for us. I think sometimes leaders of an organization who are very passionate about coaching believe that it needs to come into the culture. They believe that all their conversations need to be more coach like, but they're stretched for time. And sometimes they don't take the courses themselves at first. Sometimes they're further down the line. And that's why the self paced option was vital that we created. For a long time, we ran senior leader courses. We did them in a slightly different way, but having the self-paced version, and actually something that we also have, it's called the basics, and it's just a 1 hour self-paced course. And I love that because pretty much in an hour, you're going to figure out, is this right for me? Is this right for my community and my staff? And are we wanting to dive into this? So we created that. And that's what I love about learning platforms. I can mainly speak to Thinkific, but to learning platforms in general is that they're built to help you create more. So I really quickly, taking from other courses that we had, was able to put together this 1 hour course. And now we run these live online classes, and we're starting to take them and create a self paced version at a different price point that's, it's cheaper. You can do it at your own pace. It's not the same experience, but it's still really positive, and it gives you an insight into coaching for neurodiversity or how to coach 5-year-olds, which are topics that may or may not interest people. We've got different people coming to those different classes, but now we have a class library that people can go to and search for those different classes.
Awesome. And so when you work within a organization, within a school, I really like how you have multiple different versions, essentially, that depending on the availability of the people involved, they can do these different versions. So do you try and have everybody involved? Is it they do it with certain classrooms first? When you're thinking about rolling this out within an organization, how does that work?
So ultimately, people adopt new things in different ways. You want all of your leaders to do this. Like you're like, I want our middle leaders, our senior leaders, we want anyone working with students to be able to coach the students. Okay, cool. But what if they don't want to? So were you gonna force them? You're gonna make an adult take a course and then make them do things like that? We all know that doesn't really work. Our vision of what is possible is like everyone should be volunteering. Everyone should adopt this at the right time for them. So yeah, if they are in a management position, if they are advising students or in that kind of one-to-one or small group role with students, sure, they absolutely would benefit from coaching skills, but they're not going to use said skills if they don't actually want to use them. And those people are the worst people on a course. They don't want to be there. They're not going to invest in the work in the same way. And they're definitely not going to complete a self paced course. So today I made a video for a school that they're going to send an email out to 20 of their staff saying who wants to take the self-paced course. So I explained about Graydin. I taught them a little bit about how we see coaching. I showed them in the self-paced portal. And I said, by this time in the video, if you aren't clear yet whether you should take this course or not, I'd be very surprised because now is the moment where you should know, yes, this is for me, I'm all in, or no, I'm not. If you're not, I don't want you to pretend like you are because you're going to start the course and you're not going to complete it and there's no point. So if you want to do this because you're going to enjoy it. But if you don't want to, please don't.
And do you price on a per person basis or on organizational pricing flat fee no matter how many people are taking it?
I think with schools specifically, I can't speak for other orgs and other structures, but I think with schools specifically, we have scholarship spots for everything. If somebody says, I can't pay for this, we basically give it to them for free. At this point, it's more important that the work is getting done than anything. But yeah, we have scholarship spots and we have schools that will come to us and they will say, we want to get 100 or 150 people to take the self-paced course. We would not charge them £225 per person for 100 or 150 people. We'll drop the price if it's at that scale. We also have a course called Better Conversations. It's only 90 minutes and that is £35. And with that kind of pricing, yeah, they can probably afford to get 50 people on that course. When they're at that scale, it's almost like a kindness to say, thanks for buying all of this. And here's a little bit of a discount per person.
Okay, cool. There are other avenues I can pursue, but Abe, anything you want to ask about?
Also, just interested to hear what have been sort of lessons learned for you from this overall journey that you would be interested to talk about.
I think one of the biggest lessons we've learned about helping people learn well online is you want them to feel connected to the work. You want them to be saying yes and wanting to do it. And then from there, it's small chunks. The more we can small chunk, the better the learning experience will be for them. So, how do we create really fun learning moments that are sparky and big? And then how can we have more reflective ones? But how can we not put those together? We try to keep our videos super short, like 2 to 5 minutes. And an audio file can be longer because we imagine they could take it and go on a walk with it. But ultimately, if it's a learning audio file, it would probably still be about 5 minutes. If it's a coaching demonstration, that could go into the 30-minute mark. We really try to think of who is experiencing this. What is the user, the customer, the human behind the thing, and what do they need and want? And then literally creating that for them. So we have like a GIF at the end of a section that's got like, fireworks going off, being like, you did it. How can you delight them and create these moments of like, ooh, that was fun, or yay, it likes me, and having a certificate at the end. We have mindful moments in the middle of our course. It's a 12-hour experience. So we think of it as like, okay, you've got the opening, that's an hour, and then you have the ending, that's an hour. And then you have 4 parts before the middle and 4 parts towards the end. How can we space that out so these 8 parts in these beginning and end, the 10 sections, feel more palatable? So then we have these mindful moments, which is like, let's listen to an audio file and take a mindful moment and think to ourselves, what am I learning? What am I experiencing? What am I wanting more of? And then have a review of everything they've been learning and then get them to think, what do you want next? What's here for you? So we're using our coaching skills to create a learning experience that is as coach like as it could possibly be. And I have learned people really like that. I don't think I knew that going into it, but our rates of completion are in the 90% area. We don't have people take our courses and not finish them. And I think that's not just because they knew why they were signing up. That's definitely one. But then they knew why they had to stay. That's the second part.
Where do you sort of see the line or the distinction between curriculum and coaching?
Curriculum and coaching in terms of education?
Well, because you described your approach to your course, which many people would think of as a curriculum, but you described making it as coach like as possible.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it starts with Mackenzie and I being really vulnerable and sharing our stories and who we are. We're really clear about that person understanding why they're there. We have a lot of questions for the person to reflect on and get clear about who are you doing this for? What is the point? Who's in your mind's eye as you take this course? Who's the person you want to practice with, the coachee that you want to really give these skills to and make an impact on? This is the best part about our courses. And I think any good coaching course should be doing this as well. it- they have to experience the activity. So, the lenses activity, the values activity, the mapping activity, they have to do it, listen to someone do it with someone else before they go do it. So it's like learning by experiencing it, learning by observing, and I mean, it's listening really, but watching and to a degree, and then going and practicing. And I think it's that ability for them to do the work themselves. Sure, I'm not there, but we've created the audio files and questions in the text to make them feel like we are there. I don't particularly look at myself as being famous at all, but I do think that some of the people who have taken our courses are like, "Oh, you've met Mackenzie and Quinn?" Like, we're these people on a screen for some teachers, and some teachers we've, like, gone and done a course in person, so of course we've met them. But they felt like they were with us even though they weren't. I've had some online learning experiences that were intolerable to watch, like videos that for me, I had to turn off the video, listen to it because I couldn't watch their face. They were too long for me. So I was like, I can't listen to all of this because my brain is exploding. And I just think to myself, like, how much work went into thinking about the person and the experience they were having. I'm sure a lot of work went into the curriculum, but as you say, how much work went into helping the human being think about the curriculum and create a relationship with that curriculum.
I guess it sounds like what it comes down to is you're looking at it from a learner centered and an outcome based perspective, which is something we often talk about in learning design, but it seems to be a perspective that is not very intuitive to a lot of course creators. And so maybe the idea of thinking about it from the perspective of you're a coach trying to help your students or learners succeed might be a more accessible way into that.
I love that. I think that even the courses that weren't great, we're all just trying to do good and trying to help and share incredible resources with one another. So, how do we help them? I think this podcast is an answer to that, right? I've listened to several of your episodes and you have such diverse types of course creators. And I think that anyone that's building a course, I hope that they'll take a moment to think about how to do it versus doing it. And I mean, I don't feel like we had that time because it was like, go, go, go. But if we had, this would have been the kind of podcast or the kind of course experience that I would have been looking for, learning from people who have done it, learning from different experiences. And I think that we are all trying to get a message across, but there are really a lot of ways to do that. So, how do we choose the right one for the right person at the right time through the right platform? I think all of those are critical for us to consider.
Or anything else you want to explore?
No, I think that's a very, very good note to end on. Thank you, Quinn.
You're probably the most energized and enthusiastic person that we have talked to.
I'll take that. That makes me happy. I think about this all the time, and I really think there's so many creators that really, really don't know where to start.
For the people listening, where can they go to learn more about you and what grading does?
Go to Graydin, Graydin.com. And I think that looking under classes and our courses and our pathways is the best way to start, but definitely the basics. It's a 1 hour self-paced course. It's free and it just gives you a really quick, easy introduction into who we are, what coaching is, and what's possible to learn with us.
Quinn, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us.
Thank you.
Quinn Simpson is the co founder of Graydin, an organization dedicated to transforming support for young people in schools and homes worldwide. You can find out more about her and the school at graydin.com. That's GRAYDIN.com. And you'll find the link in the show notes.
Now stick around for my favorite part of the show, where Abe and Ari will pull out the best takeaways for you to apply to your course.
All right, Ari, it's time for the debrief. Quinn has very interesting perspective here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that, her approach very much is that of a coach, and I appreciate that. And it sounds like from her experience, she didn't go into this really as a course creator, although she did build an in-person program. I really appreciate the way that she was talking about curating the experience and kind of keeping that in mind. And as you mentioned in the episode, it's something that new course creators often don't do. It is something that we've talked about a lot, but using the way that she framed it, kind of that shorthand of think of it as a coach, think of how you're building your course as a coach and how it can be more like a coaching experience can be an interesting shorthand for that process.
Yeah, I think people may be lacking in mental models for how to approach developing a good learning experience effectively. And So one approach is like learning design, but that may seem inaccessible or overly academic, or people may just not be familiar with it. I think coaching is potentially an easier entry point because a lot of people are already doing some type of coaching or consulting, so they understand that more intuitively. It just leads you more directly to the idea that your job is to support and help your clients and help them move forward. Your job is not to just create a lot of content.
And the other thing that I found interesting, just that they are selling to multiple audiences. We didn't get too far into it in the episode, but it's definitely something for course creators to keep in mind as they're building, just to make sure that what they are building fits into the model that those people are looking to buy and what an organization would be interested in to bring in can scale for many, many people within the organization. She was mentioning 50, 100, 200 people versus something that is higher touch with a smaller cohort or individuals who might be paying a higher price. I don't know exactly how it works for their company, but something to keep in mind as you're planning out your business model.
Yeah, just a reminder of the principle that like just because you have one type of customer that's working doesn't mean that's the only direction you can go in. So always worth exploring what else is out there, right? If you're making connections with individual teachers, what organizations are they a part of? So that's a great question to ask about any sort of type of niche, like what organization or groups are they a part of, or what are the bigger context around them? All good?
All good.
Quinn Simpson is the co-founder of Graydin, an organization dedicated to transforming support for young people in schools and homes worldwide. You can find out more about her and the school at graydin.com. That's GRAYDIN.com. And you'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening to Course Lab. I'm Abe Crystal, co-founder and CEO of Riku, here with my co-host Ari Eni. Course Lab is a part of Mirasee FM podcast network, which also includes such shows as Neuroscience of Coaching and Just Between Coaches. If you don't want to miss the excellent episodes coming up on Course Lab, follow us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. If you're enjoying the show, go ahead and leave us a starred review. It really does make a difference. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Ari, who do we have coming on the show next week?
Next time, we have Leslie Sim. She's a visionary executive of Out of the Box CIO and co-creator of the Transformadox methodology. She's going to talk to us about the Transformadox Master Leadership course that is a 6-month blended peer group and one-on-one instruction and experiential learning program. I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
That is a mouthful, so we're definitely going to need to unpack that.
Yeah, absolutely.